My name is Mara Ellison, 32 years old. There wasn't a scream. Not from me. No screeching tires. Just the brittle percussion of glass giving up and the airbags detonating with a heavy white bloom. 1 second, I was deciding between rotisserie chicken and drive-through tacos. The next, I was hanging upside down in my car, seatbelt slicing across my ribs, the world a tilted snow globe of glittering safety glass and the copper taste of blood. Someone opened the door, gloved hands, a steady voice close to my ear. "Can you hear me?" I nodded. The way a nod feels when gravity is wrong is something I won't forget. Sirens braided into the night. I caught the iodine-sharp smell of the ER before the lights found me. The nurse called it a mild concussion, mild like a storm you watch from the window until the tree falls through the roof. Dislocated shoulder, 2 broken ribs, bruises blooming in places I didn't know could bruise. They told me I was lucky. I didn't feel lucky. I felt like a body that happened to be breathing. On the second night, I finally looked at my phone. Not because it buzzed, because it hadn't. The screen lit the room with a small, guilty glow. 27 unread messages, family group chat. For half a second, relief rose like a wave. The first image punched it flat. Carly, my sister, grinning in a white robe, champagne in hand, 2 fingers up in a peace sign. Spa time, baby. Another photo in the sauna. Fancy sushi. Nails painted, feet in rose petals, a green clay mask smile. Mom under each. So cute, you deserve it. Love you, sweetie. Dad with his habitual thumbs up emojis. Not one message asking where I was. I turned the phone face down on the rolling tray and stared at the dotted ceiling tiles until they blurred. The physical therapist came in, a kid with soft hands and a practiced optimism. Deep breaths so those ribs don't stiffen. I breathed because he asked, and because it was the only thing they couldn't outsource to me. When they discharged me on day 4, they told me not to drive or work for at least a week. I sat in the lobby for nearly an hour, waiting on a rideshare, hospital gown rough under my hoodie because I couldn't lift my arm to change. No one offered to pick me up. I didn't ask. I wanted to see who we were without my reminders. The apartment was dim and kind in the way small places can be. I slept like a person who'd been underwater too long. In the morning, I turned my ringer back on. 64 missed calls, stacked into a single number that didn't feel real. Mostly Dad, some from Carly, one from Mom. No voicemails, just a text at the top of the screen. "Dad, call us back now, it's serious." Serious was a word I understood. I hit call. The line didn't ring. "Mara?" Dad's voice was strangled at the edges, not angry, rattled. I pictured him pacing, phone clamped to his face, eyes scanning for an explanation that let him keep all his favorite stories about us. He started talking fast. Something about Carly's rent not going through, her card declining, how she couldn't access her bank app. I said nothing. He filled the silence. Mom had tried to transfer money for bills, and it bounced. Her credit card, my secondary, stopped at checkout. Then the phone plan auto pay failed. They thought it was the bank, or a hacker, or, he swallowed, them being targeted. "Do you know what's going on?" he asked, careful now, like the floor could crack. I froze everything, I said. Quiet on the line. I could hear the TV in their living room through the phone, some canned laughter, accidentally cruel. "You froze?" The secondary cards, the backup account Carly uses, outgoing transfers, password resets, all of it. "Mara, why?" I looked at the bruise on my shoulder, darkening to plum. "Because I was in a car accident 4 days ago," I said. "Flipped the car. Concussion, broken ribs, dislocated shoulder. I spent 3 nights in the hospital. I came home alone, and while I was hooked to an IV, you were in the group chat writing 'so cute' under spa photos. No one noticed I was gone." "If we had known," he started, voice pitching toward anger as cover for fear. "You didn't wonder why I went silent," I said. "You didn't ask. You didn't check in. I didn't need a parade. I needed a text." He regrouped fast like he does when the truth ruins the scene. "Carly's been dealing with a lot. Your mom's stressed. The spa weekend was for her anxiety. Maybe you should have reached out." There it was, the gravity flipping again, trying to hang me back on that same old hook. I'm done being the one who always reaches out. I kept my voice even because shouting is a kind of begging. I'm done being the safety net. I've covered Carly's rent 4 times in 2 years. I consolidated mom's debt. I paid your medical bill at Christmas. When I needed something that wasn't money, just presents, you didn't notice. He tried another door. You're really going to turn your back on family? Over this? No, I said, and the words steadied me. I already did. I ended the call before he could pick a new script. I sat there, the phone heavy in my lap, the apartment quiet in a way that felt newly intentional. The truth wasn't hot anymore. It was cool, a clarity that didn't need witnesses. The text barrage started in the afternoon. Carly, why is my card not working? Then, hello? Then a call. Then Mom. My account is acting weird. Can you call the bank? Like always. No apology. No, how are you? Just straight to the problem, the way someone asks customer service for a supervisor. I didn't answer. I opened my laptop instead. The spreadsheet grew cell by cell. Phone plan. I was still the primary. Of course I was. Streaming services. 3 I'd forgotten I was paying. Rent auto pays. Gym membership. Credit cards with temporary secondaries that never got removed. Cloud storage shared with logins I barely used. And an old Venmo account I almost forgot existed, tied to a backup bank I rarely touched. I locked that first, a quiet bolt sliding home. The door opened softly. Hey, Evan said, setting a paper bag on the counter. My boyfriend has the kind of presence that doesn't demand a room, he warms it. I made soup, doctor's orders, seasoned by a man who can't watch the person he loves live on pretzels. I almost said I wasn't hungry. The smell of garlic and thyme changed my mind for me. He studied my face. Your dad? They're panicking, I said. About you? About the money. My laugh surprised us both. Dad asked if I knew what was going on. I told him I froze it all. He was shocked, like I threw a brick through their window. Evan's jaw flexed, then relaxed. He doesn't go to war for me. He stands with me. You don't have to explain any of this, he said quietly. Not to me, not to them. I slid the laptop toward him so he could see the grid. I'm making sure there's nothing left for them to accidentally lean on. His eyes moved over the cells, then back to me. Good. He hesitated. You saw Sienna on Carly's spa post? I had. A bright little heart, a comment about self-care queens from a woman who used to be Evan's entire weather system. It shouldn't have mattered. It did, but not the way I expected. It told me how fast a story can spread when the truth is an inconvenience. She's a chorus member, I said. I'm not staging a musical. He smiled without humor. Then we don't feed them tickets. After he left, shift at the restaurant, night folded in on the apartment cleanly. I moved money out of shared sightlines to a new bank. I set alerts so sharp a moth landing on the account would set off sirens. I changed passwords until my fingers ached. When my shoulder burned, I stopped, breathed, and pictured the hospital ceiling until the ache passed. The group chat chimed like a neglected smoke detector. Mom, let's be adults. Call me. Dad, we're going through a rough patch. You're the strong one. We need you to come through again. That word again, need. My ribs protested when I laughed. When was the last time any of you did something for me? I typed, then erased it. Feeding the thread was feeding the machine. Near midnight, curiosity pulled me back to Carly's page. The spa photos multiplied throughout the weekend. A new clip showed clinking flutes and the caption, "We deserve this." Sienna had replied with a glittering heart. I felt nothing but a quiet note of warning. People who love a headline won't read the article. Before bed, I wrote 3 lines on a yellow sticky note and pressed it to my screen. This is not revenge. This is reality catching up. Close every door. In the morning, I'd start on the phone plan and leases. I'd call the bank back and make the freezes permanent. I'd look for my name where it never should have been and take it off with the patience of someone writing frames on a wall after an earthquake. For the first time in a long time, the silence in the room didn't feel like punishment. It felt like a blank page. Morning arrived with the kind of bright, indifferent light that makes you honest. I propped my laptop on a pillow to spare my ribs and opened the spreadsheet. Columns waited like open doors. Account, owner, who's attached, action taken, date, proof. I started with the family plan because it was the largest artery. 5 lines, all under my name. I pictured each number like a tiny IV plugged into my arm. I logged in, stripped it down to 1, mine, and changed the PIN. the passphrase, the security questions that Mom loved to guess out loud at the kitchen table. Favorite teacher? Not anymore. Breathe, I told myself, like the kid therapist had said while pressing a palm to my sternum. I clicked save. One door closed. Streaming services were next. They were weeds. Disney Plus, Netflix, Prime, a documentary bundle Carly swore she needed for work and never paid me back for. I signed out of all devices, reset passwords, disabled one-click purchases, removed every profile that made my stomach tighten. In each login history, there they were, late-night binges while I lay under hospital lights. I didn't tell myself a story about it. I just clicked. The gym membership she'd promised to cancel months ago, still attached. I dialed, braced for hold music, and sat through the scripted cheerfulness of a rep who asked if I was sure. I was. When she offered a free month to stay, I said, "Please remove my payment method," and let the silence on my end carry the answer. Autopays were trickier. Carly's rent had run through my account so many times that the portal still autofilled my email. I removed it, then sent a formal request to have my name taken off all contact lists. In the emergency contact field, still me, I typed update on file and hit submit. The little confirmation checkmark felt like a grain of sand lodged under my skin, finally working free. Evan set a mug of coffee at my elbow and kissed the top of my head. "Soup for breakfast is legal when you're healing," he said, sliding a thermos next to the mug like a second son. "How's the map of exits looking?" "Like a house after a party," I said. Sticky and embarrassing, but solvable. He sat beside me and didn't look at the screen, just at my face. "You sure you want to do phones today? That's going to land like a grenade." "It needs to be early," I said, "so they have time to discover Wi-Fi before dark." His mouth twitched. Strategist. I worked until my shoulder throbbed and my ribs begged for stillness. Then I stopped, set a timer, lay flat, and breathed. When it passed, I went back in. Cloud storage. I removed shared folders with names like Family Photos 2019 that contained 3 blurry fireworks and 2 bills I'd scanned. Rideshare, cleared family access, revoked credits. Amazon household, separated. The old Venmo she'd used once to pay me back $12 for pizza? I tightened that lock twice. The backup bank account it was tied to had been moved, renamed, and tucked where no one could reach it without a map and permission. I wrote down every change, kept every confirmation, printed PDFs like paper shields. By noon, the messages started to thud against my phone. "Carly, why is my phone not working?" Carly, "Hello, Carly. Mara, answer me." "Mom, honey. My card declined at checkout. The bank is acting strange. Can you fix it?" "Dad, we should talk like adults. Be reasonable." The word reasonable sat on my screen like a fruit fly I couldn't swat. I put the phone face down and ate half a grilled cheese Evan made, the bread crisp enough to remind me there were textures that didn't feel like hospital linens. By 2, Carly had escalated from caps to voice notes. The first was confused. The second, indignant. The third rode the jagged edge of crying. "This is humiliating," she said. "At the cafe, my card declined in front of everyone. It's cruel to do this without warning." The background sounded like clinking cups and someone laughing too hard at nothing. I listened to each without responding, a new muscle flexing in my chest. Restraint. The group chat lit up like a siren. "Mom, we need to discuss this. You can't punish us because you're upset." Carly, "I can't pay rent. Are you trying to get me evicted?" Dad, "We're all under pressure. You're the strong one, Mara. We need you to come through again." I typed 3 words and deleted them. Over and over. "When did you?" By late afternoon, my phone rang with unknown caller. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Dad's number this time. I answered. He was careful, the way you speak to someone you think might be carrying a lit match. "We're going through a rough patch," he said. "Your sister is under a lot of stress, and your mother is distracted. You've always been the steady one. We need your help to get through this." "I asked myself a question today," I said. "When was the last time any of you did something for me?" Silence, then a sigh. "That's not how families work." "Exactly," I said, and ended the call. I stared at the wall until my eyes watered, not from grief, but from release. A truth can be so sharp it opens a window. The next morning, Carly called 7 times before 9. When I didn't answer, she texted from the lobby, "I'm downstairs. I just want to talk." I stood behind the door and said nothing. Her engine revved and faded, and the quiet that followed was absolute. She wanted access, not understanding. That's the thing about doors. People who have always walked through without knocking call you selfish when you install a lock. Around lunch, Mom shifted tone from velvet to vinegar. "This isn't like you. You've always been generous. Don't let bitterness change who you are." Attached was a photo of a pumpkin candle and a caption, "Getting cozy." It was the digital version of whistling past a graveyard. No one in the chat replied, not even Dad. I went back to the work. I flushed out a lingering autopay tied to an old email, canceled it, and scanned the spreadsheet for holes. My eyes caught on the emergency contact field I'd changed for Carly's landlord. I made a note to follow up with written confirmation. The thought of them calling me when the rent didn't land felt like a ghost hand tugging my sleeve. Evan came back between shifts, hair still damp from a too-fast shower at the restaurant. He folded an arm around me carefully. "You're doing it," he murmured. "Not just the clicking, the choosing." "I made a lot of quiet agreements I never signed," I said into his shirt. "I'm untangling the ones I can find." He kissed my temple, squeezed once, and left me with a container labeled Soup 2. Don't be brave. By evening, I checked Carly's Instagram out of habit more than hunger. Her stories cut off mid-weekend. Nothing new. Then the grid shifted. Posts vanished one by one like birds lifting at once. The profile picture disappeared. An hour later, the entire page was gone. Deleted or deactivated, I couldn't tell. The first real confirmation that the public gloss had cracked. Mom filled the space with small talk in the group chat. Who remembers this song? A link to an article about fall soups. No one bit. The thread looked like a room after people you love have said unforgivable things and are now pretending they didn't. The bank called the next day. "We're seeing repeated attempts on a deactivated joint card," the woman said. She named the last 4 digits, asked if I wanted to report it as fraud. I pictured Carly at a counter somewhere, staring at a keypad like it had betrayed her. "No report," I said. "Keep the freeze. Flag further attempts." After the call, I made one more pass through the accounts, the way you check the lock twice after closing. I enabled two-factor everywhere, changed the email recovery address, and set up alerts that would wake me for a moth. When I finished, I printed the spreadsheet, slid it into a binder, and snapped the rings shut with a sound that felt final. As dusk fell, Dad called again and left a message. His voice was less careful now, fraying. "You've gone too far. Carly was careless, yes, but freezing everything? You cut your mother off at the register. How is that fair? You've always been reasonable." He paused, and in the pause I could hear the hum of their refrigerator, the clink of a glass. "We didn't know about the accident," he said finally, softer. "We would have come." I played it twice. Then I deleted it. I didn't need a narrative where not knowing was a defense against not noticing. Night drew its curtains. I turned off the lamp and let the apartment be dark for a minute, just to see if the dark would scare me. It didn't. I could feel the aftershocks under my feet. Yes, the family chat cooling to ash, the panic shifting from indignation to desperation. But grief wasn't steering anymore. Clarity was. Before bed, I opened a new note and wrote a single line for tomorrow. Follow up on landlord emergency contact. Beneath it, smaller. Expect the letter. I didn't know what form it would take, only that something on thick paper with precise cursive would arrive to tell me who I was and who I should be. I closed the note and smiled without warmth. They were late to the story. I'd already written the next scene. When sleep came, it came fast. No midnight scroll, no bank alerts like cold hands on my chest. Just quiet. The kind that used to feel like abandonment and now, slowly, felt like a room I'd finally unlocked for myself. The letter arrived on a Wednesday, slid under my apartment door like a warning. Thick, cream-colored envelope. My mother's handwriting, neat and deliberate. I carried it to the table, sat down, and slid it open with a butter knife. 3 pages of cursive. The first line, "We've all been under stress, but family must stay united." The middle paragraphs were performance. Pride in me for being responsible, sympathy for Carly's struggles. And then the pitch, a temporary loan, just until Carly's situation stabilizes. Attached, copies of Carly's overdrawn account, a credit card statement with nearly $3,000 in designer purchases, a spa membership bill, and at the very bottom, a typed contract. Loan terms, interest rate, signature lines for me and Carly, a witness signature space, as though we were strangers entering litigation. I sat with it for a long time. My ribs ached from laughing without sound. Not an apology, not one word about the hospital, the accident, just a contract to turn my exhaustion into collateral. I slid it back into the envelope and left it on the counter like an artifact. That night, my buzzer rang 3 times. I didn't move. Then came a knock, slow and deliberate. My phone lit up with a text. "It's Josh. Carly gave me your address. Please open up." I cracked the door. Josh stood in the hall, hands shoved into his pockets, awkward in the way of someone who knows they've been used. Carly's ex. He hadn't been around since their messy breakup 2 years ago. "She told me you've lost it," he said quietly, "that you cut everyone off out of nowhere. She wanted me to talk to you, see if I could help." He hesitated. "I don't buy it. That's why I came." I let him in. We sat at the table. I showed him the envelope, the spa photos. I told him about the crash, the hospital bed, the silence. He didn't interrupt. His jaw clenched tighter with every detail. Finally, he said, "She's been staying at your mom's. They're telling people you had a breakdown, that you couldn't handle stress, so you're punishing everyone. They're getting sympathy for being the ones who have to deal with you." I stared at him. A bitter kind of calm spread through me. "So when they lost my wallet, they reached for my reputation." Josh nodded. "I thought you should know." When he left, the air in my apartment felt heavier. I could almost hear the whispers being typed, the comments flooding under vague Facebook posts. The next morning, Evan slid his phone across the table. A screenshot. "My mother's Facebook status. Please keep our family in your prayers. Some people lash out when they're in pain. We're trying to stay strong through a very difficult time." Dozens of comments. "Sending love. You're such a strong mom. Stay positive." Evan's hand brushed mine. "You don't have to fight them, but if you want to, don't do it with words. Do it with proof." I opened my binder, the spreadsheet, the bank records, the screenshots. I added the letter, the contract, the Facebook post. I organized them into a folder titled Truth. Then I sent every document to one person, Dad. No message, no context, just evidence. Hours later, my phone buzzed. A text from him. "I didn't know. I see it now. I'm sorry." 6 words, no excuses, no defenses. I read them twice. My first instinct was to believe. My second was to remember how many times sorry had been a pause before another request. So I didn't reply. That night, Evan asked, "Do you feel lighter?" I thought about it. "Not lighter, just done waiting." He nodded, then let the weight sit with them for once. I placed Dad's text on the mental shelf where the contract sat, proof of what I'd always known but never wanted to admit. They were never going to see me as more than the glue that kept their lives intact. And now, the glue had melted. 2 days later, the knock came again. This time, it wasn't Josh. It was a courier. An official-looking envelope stamped with a landlord's logo. I tore it open with a pit in my stomach. Notice of pending eviction. Tenant Carly Ellison. Balance overdue. No response to outreach. 5 days before filing. My email was still listed as her emergency contact. That was why it had come to me. I held the paper, remembering every quiet wire I'd sent to that office over the years. Payments Carly never acknowledged. Sometimes she'd send a single check emoji and vanish. Now, without me, the foundation was crumbling. I folded the notice and slid it into the binder. A tripwire had already been set, and I could feel the ground trembling. And still, I hadn't heard the last from Carly. The eviction notice should have felt like closure, but it didn't. It felt like the beginning of a deeper unraveling. I placed it in the binder with the rest. Proof, evidence, weight. But the silence that followed wasn't peace. It was the sound of pressure building. Josh texted me again later that night. "I stopped by your mom's to grab the last of my things. Carly looks rough, puffy eyes, pacing. She tried to rope me into talking to you again. Said she couldn't believe you'd do this to her. I didn't bite. But Mara, she and your mom fought. Bad. Neighbors called the cops." I stared at the message, picturing my mother's living room, the couch where Carly had curled up for every temporary stay, the shelves stacked with candles and picture frames, now shattered by shouting. Josh's next text came before I could type. Carly took your mom's car, just left her stranded, keys gone. The image hit me harder than I expected. Carly, the golden child, turning on the last ally she had left. Maybe this was the real fracture. Maybe this was what happened when I stopped being the silent backbone. They couldn't even hold each other up. 3 mornings later, I came home from a grocery run and found another envelope shoved under my door. No stamp, no handwriting, just folded paper inside. I opened it on the kitchen counter. A printed screenshot, a Venmo transfer attempt, $900 from one of my old backup accounts. A dusty one I hadn't touched in over a year. Carly had tried to pull from it quietly, as if she could thread the needle through one last open vein. She failed. The transfer had bounced. What she didn't know was that I'd already locked that account days earlier, anticipating she'd remember it. But seeing it on paper, deliberate, undeniable, ripped away the last sliver of hope I had for repair. I wasn't paranoid. She really would drain me dry if I left a single door open. That was it, the tripwire. The next morning, I walked into the bank. The fraud specialist pulled up my file, eyes widening as she scrolled. You caught this early. We'll flag her name, IP address, device ID. If she tries again, it'll trigger automatically. I nodded. I don't want charges yet, just documentation, a line in the sand. She gave me a sympathetic look. Family cases are always the hardest. I didn't answer. Family was just the name we gave the thieves who smiled while they took. Back home, I sat at my desk with the binder open, every page heavy with history. Receipts, screenshots, eviction notices, bank records. It wasn't anger that filled me now. It was clarity. A map of how I'd carried them for years without realizing it. I started shutting everything down for good. Email addresses tied to old subscriptions, forgotten free trials that had somehow lived on. Even an insurance policy Mom once asked me to co-sign for convenience. I called and removed myself. One by one, I cut the strings. When I finished, I blocked them all. Phone numbers, emails, social accounts, even the family group chat. I set 2-factor authentication on everything. Changed recovery questions, locked down the Venmo, the PayPal, the cloud drives, every plank of the bridge. Dismantled. And then for the first time I felt it, the quiet. Not the silence that used to gnaw at me in a hospital bed, but the kind that hummed like safety. Evan came over that night with takeout. He didn't ask questions, just set the food down and poured me tea. We ate on the couch, the TV low. Afterward, I told him about the fraud attempt, about the car, about the fight. He listened, eyes steady. Then he said, "You know what I love about you? You're not doing this out of spite. You're doing this to live." I felt the words land inside me, like anchors in calm water. "They'll say I abandoned them," I whispered. "They abandoned you a long time ago," he said softly. I went to bed that night without my phone beside me. I didn't need to watch for their shadows anymore. I'd built a wall, documented every stone, and sealed every crack. And for once, when I closed my eyes, I wasn't waiting for the next knock. The silence stretched into weeks. No calls, no texts, no emails clawing at my inbox. The absence that once would have hollowed me out now felt like insulation. But the fallout reached me anyway, carried by others. Amanda called one afternoon, her voice tight with something between pity and relief. "Mara, I think he finally understands. No one's answering his calls anymore. Even Mom stopped. Uncle Ray told him straight, 'You're the disgrace, not Mara.'" I sat with that sentence like it was foreign currency. I'd spent years afraid of being branded the disgrace, the selfish one, the cold one. But the title had finally been handed back to the rightful owner. A week later, a plain white envelope slid under my door. Inside was a check, $2,400. The debt from last spring. The signature scrawled angrily at the bottom, but next to it, another hand steadier, Rachel's. She'd forced him, paid the processing fee herself. A note on the back read, "You were right to demand it." I held it for a long time before depositing it. The money mattered less than what it represented. Acknowledgement, however reluctant. The car Rachel returned sat in my driveway like a monument to every tangled obligation I'd carried. One Saturday, I cleaned it out. Food wrappers, empty bottles, the smell of neglect. Then I listed it. A young couple came, starry-eyed, counting cash in trembling hands. They drove off grinning, their first car. Watching it leave felt like watching the last tether burn away. With the money, I booked something I hadn't dared in years. A weekend away. a cabin by a lake still fringed with ice. Evan and I lit the fireplace, the kids roasted marshmallows, and for 2 days, the only thing I heard was their laughter bouncing off water. The silence there wasn't abandonment, it was presence. Back home, life rearranged itself into something startlingly ordinary. Breakfasts without bank alerts buzzing like alarms. Evenings without guilt-tripped phone calls. Nights where I turned off the light and trusted morning would come without a crisis attached. Every so often, a holiday card still finds me. No return address, just thinking of you. In Mom's neat script, sometimes Dad's, I never reply. But I keep them in a drawer, not because I'm holding on, but because I like remembering how far I've walked. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't about handing someone the keys again. Sometimes it's just putting the past in a box and refusing to carry it. One evening, Tyler stopped by with takeout and sat on my porch. He watched me for a while before saying, "They keep saying they lost you, but they never had you, Mara. They had your access. And when that ended, they realized there was nothing else." His words echoed long after he left. He was right. They didn't lose a daughter, a sister, a safety net. They lost the version of me willing to be erased, willing to bleed quietly so they could shine. And once that version was gone, there was nothing left for them to hold on to. Now, when I pass the garage door, all I see is clean white paint. No red insults, no proof of someone else's bitterness, just silence. The kind of silence I once mistook for punishment, but now recognize for what it is: peace.